Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And in the studio with us, Charles Sauer, the president, Libertarian Economist, and president of the Market Institute. MarketInstitute.org is Charles's website. Charles, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here with us. So FDR back in the day, now that we hear, actually, we've heard from a couple of sources in Trump land that part of the agenda is to complete the rolling back of FDR's New America, the New Deal that Reagan started dismantling.
The New Deal was a raw deal.
Well, that's their position. So here's FDR talking about some of these rights, and I'm just curious, even if you don't agree that these should be rights, I'm sure you would agree that these are goods. And so the question, as in good things, so the question is, how do we accomplish them? And for some reason, my audio player is not playing. Here we go. Let's try it again.
True individual freedom.
True individual freedom
Cannot exist without economic security and independence. Necessitous men are not free men.
So first he makes the argument that, if you're poor, you're not really free. If you're hungry, you're not really free. So we can probably agree on that at a certain level.
True individual freedom.
Well, rats, it started over again. That's right.
Necessitous men are not free men. People who are hungry, people who are out of a job, are the stuff of which dictatorships are made. So
first of all, I'm assuming we agree on this. If you've got a nation that's in the midst of a horrible depression, they're more vulnerable to dictators and demagogues, left or right.
Yep. I mean,
whether it's Hugo Chavez or whether it's, what's his name, Mussolini.
You want a good economy and I want a good economy.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go through this stuff. Here he is.
In our day, these economic truths have become accepted as self-evident. We have accepted, so to speak, a second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed.
So here we get to the second Bill of Rights. These are the actual things that we do, right? What should be rights?
Among these are the right to a useful and remunerative job in the industry, or shops, or farms, or mines of the nation.
So how do we accomplish that? How do we make sure that if a person is working for a living, they can actually live in the United States? Right now, the minimum wage is not a living wage. And I'm guessing you would agree with that. What do you do about that? In conservative world, in libertarian world?
I definitely agree. I've called the minimum wage the death wage for a long time, because as soon as they set it, by the time it actually is implemented, it's below the poverty level by the time the minimum wage is implemented. And what we need to do is...
It was not always the case, by the way. It was not the case in the 60s. It was not the case in the 70s. It's largely been the case as the minimum. I mean, if the minimum wage right now was inflation adjusted since 1968, it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of $18 to $22 an hour. Back to you, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch the minimum wage. What we see now is states taking off with it, right? But the way to unleash job growth in my mind, is not to say that, you have to hire somebody at a certain amount of money. It's trying to make it easier to hire people and bringing up the economy, supporting the economy through innovation. And that's what I see Trump doing. It sounds like he's doing things that are going to... China's pushing against us using antitrust law. The Korean Trade Commission is pushing against us by taking due process away in their financial courts. And I think that what we see is a Trump administration doing away with that. For me, I think he's doing it the right way in that. And for libertarians, I think he's doing it the right way.
Are you saying that, I don't disagree, that all of our trade deals supersede the Constitution and supersede our national laws, and they shouldn't. We're in agreement on that. These trade deals suck. These trade deals have also all been passed with a majority support of Republicans in both the House and the Senate, every single one of them. The only one that the Democrats actually outvoted Republicans on was permanent normal trade relations with China, which is not a trade deal. But all of the trade deals, Colombia, Panama, NAFTA, CAFTA, everything, and TPP, these were all Republican ideas. Are you throwing out your own party?
No, see, I'm a free trader, but I would say that these deals that have come out some parts of them move us towards free trade and some parts away. But the fact is that they're become dirty political movement objects instead of good.
Okay, so we agree. Let's get rid of these trade deals and let's have an. I hate to use these. Trump has appropriated this phrase, but let's have an America First trade policy. So we can agree on that. But that doesn't answer the question that I asked, which is how do you make sure that anybody who's working in the United States, I mean, the ideal that FDR was laying out, and that really held until the 1980s, was that if you work, you may have an IQ of 70 or 80. Your work may be sweeping the streets. But if you work a 40-hour week, there is dignity associated with that. And regardless of how brilliant or not brilliant you are, regardless of how sophisticated or unsophisticated your work is, your work should earn you at least a minimum station in life that allows you to raise a family, that allows you to buy a home, that allows you to take a vacation, and that allows you to retire with some level of security.
I guess that I
disagree.
I disagree with you that dignity is associated with not getting rewarded for your actual work. To me and to most Americans out there, it seems like dignity is associated with getting rewarded for your work. When you see the John Stossel just did it's a bake sale where you charge different prices for different races, and it always gets people up in arms, and they come and talk about it. And the fact is that they end up pushing back against the laws that are in place that are doing what you said, that are supposed to give people dignity for getting a job, but it really treats people differently.
John Stossel is, A, he's not here. B, the people watching probably don't have any idea what you're talking about. So are you saying get rid of the minimum wage if you want everybody to have a living wage?
I'm saying get rid of minimum wage. What you need to do is make it easy to hire people, make it easy to fire people, and then you will have wages increase. It's actually not
unless you've got a union shop. Most of the United States is employment at will.
No, Obamacare, ACA in particular, as soon as you get over 50 employees, then it actually becomes harder to hire and fire people because you have different regulations that are in place. It's more expensive to hire those people, I guess.
Well, that has nothing to do with whether you can hire or fire. And by the way, why should, what you're arguing for is kingdom.
What I'm arguing for is capitalism. That's not kingdom.
That's not capitalism. Capitalism is investing your money and profiting from the investment of that money. That's a whole different thing from running businesses as if you're kings.
Okay, then I'm arguing by your definition. I'm arguing for capitalism under mine, but
for the primacy of capitalists,
for win-win transactions between an employer and an employee.
So how does the employee win if they're making $9 an hour and they can't live on that? How do they win?
The employee finds a new job, which is. Just makes me sound
so libertarian.
I understand how that makes me
you sound like magical thinking.
But the fact is that Econ Man doesn't exist. When you try to put somebody in that spot, it doesn't work that way. But over time, job competition wins out. That's why we see.
When in history has that ever been the case?
We see it in the states right now. The states that actually haven't increased minimum wage, we see the actual minimum wage of those states as being higher.
I see a lot of people living in poverty, just struggling to get by, and in right to work for less states.
I see a lot of people living in poverty in union states, but that's not the point. The point is where are they more likely to be able to get out of poverty, and that's where capitalism is set free, where win-win employment is. Okay,
so that's your entire argument, is basically deregulate the economy and the wonderful capitalists will take care of all of us, right?
Sounds great, doesn't it?
Okay, yeah.
The right to earn enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation.
Yeah, okay, he's still talking about the wage.
The right of every businessman, large and small, to trade in an atmosphere of freedom from unfair competition and domination by monopolies at home or abroad.
So the right of every businessman, large or small, and women I would add, to engage in business without fear of monopolistic competition. You and I both know that in this country right now, if you start a small company and you've got a great idea, it used to be, hey, we can build a business and I can pass it down to my kids and, all this kind of stuff. Now it's like, try to get it up and running as fast as possible so you don't get squashed like a bug by Microsoft or Apple, if it's a tech product, or by GE or General Motors or whatever, it's an automotive product. So we used to, prior to Reagan, we used to enforce the antitrust laws, and we used to have, America was filled with independently owned small businesses. Every strip mall had maybe one national chain that was the anchor store. There was a Sears store. Then everything in that strip mall or that mall was owned locally. Now, nothing is owned locally. What's your solution to that?
Well, and that's because they found ways to actually increase the quality of life for the people in those areas.
That's what enforcing the antitrust laws in 82.
That actually isn't true, but we've seen them increase the quality of life. So if you're for people not having the high quality of life, okay, let's consider this. What Trump is talking about, or what the libertarian
Reagan, it was damn good.
Yeah, well, what year do you want to go back to? I mean, we can look at how things weren't as good, and
last year the Carter administration. Which, by the way, is typically characterized as a pretty bad economic year because there was high inflation.
We got gas lines and high inflation.
Right, the average American in 1979, 1980 was way better off than right now.
That's the good economy of the left. I understand. What we want though is if we protect intellectual property, we can actually let these small guys protect their markets, okay?
Wait a minute. This is protecting intellectual property is how Bill Gates became a multi-billionaire. Bill
Gates started in a garage as a college dropout. Who do you want to support?
Bill Gates actually bought the original operating system from a guy who started in a garage as a college dropout, or not. I don't know if he dropped out of college or not. But I remember when he acquired MS-DOS. And it was but that's neither here nor there. I mean, how do you stop monopoly? You've got the media owned. 90% of the media in this country is now owned by 6 companies. 80% of all food production in the United States is owned by 3 companies, or food distribution and manufacturing. You've got market after market, industry after industry is owned by a small number of companies.
You get the government
without the antitrust laws. How do you break that up?
You get the government out of the way. Right?
Well, that's what Reagan did, and that's why we've got these monopolies.
You're the monopolists, if we want to, I've got air quotes here. The monopolists that you're talking about use the laws to hold down the small competitors. So we have to actually get government out of the way. Rockefeller's a good one, but Rockefeller, even if you study him, he was never actually able to become a monopoly, right? We had the Russians were competing against him. We had U.S. competitors. We had a U.S. competitor that was able to fight him for years and actually get a pipeline.
Go back and read Carl Sandburg's. Oh no, it wasn't Sandburg. Who wrote the
fake news of the day?
The definitive biography of John D. Rockefeller. I mean, he was conspiring with railroads. He was conspiring with trucking companies. I mean, he was conspiring with everybody.
And still couldn't do a monopoly.
But
couldn't do it,
and that's why there's that Ohio kicked him out. That's why in the 1890s he said, okay, Ohio wants to put me in jail and kick me out. What state will change their laws to allow what I'm doing to be legal?
One of my business mentors started a company in Laurel, Maryland. I call it the Silicon Trailer Park, right? This is a great small town. He started it above a Chinese restaurant and took on Verizon and AT&T and all of these guys and was able to grow it into the first managed hosting company. Small businesses can build companies and they just have to compete.
Verizon and AT&T are not in the hosting business. They're in the delivery business.
At the time he was running email, nobody understood what a server was. He was able to run circles around their innovation.
Try doing that now.
People are innovating right now out in their garages.
Their business model is build it so that you can sell it to the big guys.
That's always been a business model, and there's always guys that are going to hold on to it as well.
You're a young fellow, Charles. I'm sorry. Back in the 70s, back when I was a kid, the business model was let's build a business and let's own it.
Let's go back to Rockefeller. People were building oil wells just to sell them to Rockefeller all over again. Read the biography that you just talked about. They talk about that throughout the whole thing. This has always been something Tesla used to sell the inventions to people.
Yeah, and he got ripped off by Westinghouse.
He got ripped off a bunch of times, but Edison used to buy inventions from people. This has been a business practice since the beginning. We just like looking back.
So you don't have a solution to making our malls local stores.
Thinking about America back in its heyday. That's why Trump won. He's making America great again.
Okay, you get the final word. Hang on.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Charles Sauer, Libertarian Economist and President of the Market Institute, marketinstitute.org. And you can tweet him at Charles Sauer, S-A-U-E-R. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you.